we go. Some tea, we'll have some snacks. Hi, Linda Goggins. Hi, Kim. Say hi to Johnny. Can you guys hear my great music? I gotta turn something off. Hi, Valentina. This is my favorite new music, so I'll tell you a little bit about it while people are joining. Kathleen Johnson's on. How fun. Hi, Uncle Johnny. So this is Whole Tones, and I posted about it about 2 weeks ago. I don't want to make it hard to hear. So a friend of mine told me about Michael Tyrell and this God story he had and this music he ended up composing, creating, recording, and it absolutely rocks my world. So I thought we'd just start out with it while people are coming on. But I don't know how far it has to be. Somebody tell me if it's too loud, too soft. I know there's a delay, so I'm just waiting for somebody to say something. It's perfect, okay. All right, we'll just give it a minute. Okay, so we're going to talk about supplements tonight. Hey buddy, say hi. So we have a chocolate lab. Oh, too loud. Okay, here we go. And it's not going to run the whole time. I'll just turn it off. I'll turn it down. Hey, Lori Unger Church. Can't hear you. You'll have to mess with your volume. I think everybody can hear me, right? We've been listening to music. So work on your volume on your end, Kristen. Okay, so just for fun, Buddy is our 12-year-old chocolate lab. He's back there, and he was getting pretty old, right? He was just sleeping all the time, not wanting to do anything, not get into the car, not get out of the car. And so I switched his dog food, and I switched it to, I'm sure it's backwards, I don't know, Honest Kitchen. So it's a dehydrated dog food, and it is like sweet potatoes, peas, cabbage, you get the idea, blah, blah, blah. And he gets a half a cup in the morning mixed with a cup of water, and a half a cup at night mixed with water, and it has made a big difference. He also gets some of the things on my counter that we're going to talk about. But so anyway, if your dog is getting old, or it's what, I mean, food is medicine, right? It's the same thing for dogs. So anyway, okay, so we're going to get started. I know life is busy. So here we go. So we're talking about the immune system. I've got some notes here of some things that I definitely want to talk about, but I could do a different Facebook Live every single night. I'm not trying to brag, but like the things in my head and compared to what's on like one little piece of paper are completely different. So autoimmune disease, what we call autoimmune disease, obviously involves the immune system. UTIs, cancer, anything nerve related. If you're talking about neuropathy, mystery pain, sciatica, trigeminal neuralgia, migraines, that's the cows. Lyme disease, we were on nerve stuff. Anything nerve stuff involves pathogens, which involves the immune system, right? So that's why we're here. There's adrenal fatigue, which people usually feel good sometime in the day. And then there's neurological fatigue, and people don't feel good all day. And this is at the extreme, the bedridden people, but this is also people who like have MS or just like what we would call the extreme of chronic fatigue. That absolutely involves pathogens. Lyme disease, of course, that's my the label that I got on my forehead. COPD even is Epstein-Barr, eating pathogens in the lung, of course, from cigarettes. Oh, I shouldn't say of course, because one of my friends just got diagnosed and she's never smoked, but the air is full of stuff that we don't really understand unless you study it. And so all that scar tissue can really be Epstein-Barr, just like Epstein-Barr is part of fibroids and PCOS, endometriosis. So those conditions, appendicitis, of course, IBS and SIBO. Sorry, Johnny's going out to plow and the cows think that it's dinner time every time the backhoe's on. They're like Pavlov's dog. And so they're now walking up the back field and they're coming because they hear the backhoe. And it's unfortunate for them, but it's not a second dinner time. Reflux involves pathogens because those are bad pathogenic bacteria creating all those bad acids that rise up. Brain fog can involve pathogens. So I just want to present a little bit of what pathogens are a part of. But if you threw me any condition, I could tell you if pathogens are involved or not. So we're going to start out with zinc. So there's a lot of different forms of zinc. This is one of the best. So it's different. It's a large pure encapsulation, zinc 30. Second favorite, but the best form of zinc, because it's the same form that's in food, is either good state ionic zinc, and it needs to be the small bottle so it's concentrated, or Eidon's, EIDON ionic zinc. This one dropper full is 15 milligrams of zinc, which is the RDA for an adult. In the Eidons, I believe it takes 4 droppers full, but this can make people nauseous. We take it, but you have to make sure it's with food or a lot of water. Like, you really need to understand how to take this, but I don't want to, you know, when the cost is almost the same, buy another bottle where it takes me 4 times as much, even if it never makes me sick. I have thrown up with this. It certainly has created a lot of nausea. I'm not kidding when I say you have to learn how to take it so that it doesn't make you nauseous. But zinc has over 400 to 500 functions in the body, and the soil is depleted. It's not in our food supply, no matter what all those databases say. We're just not getting enough zinc anymore. And if you're not getting enough zinc, you open the door for pathogens. Pathogens are everywhere. They're on bathroom doors. They're in our house. They're on remote controls. Those are inescapable. But if you have enough zinc, they're not a problem. But if you run out of zinc, you're going to have issues. So one way you can tell if you have enough zinc is if you have white spots on your fingernails, that's an indication that you're out of zinc and not just even marginal. And you should have cuticles, like a white moon on all of your fingernail cuticles around that. I think you'll know what I'm talking about. It's that white area above your cuticles, the way I should say that. So that also is an indicator that you have enough zinc. If you've lost the moons under your cuticles, you've got white spots, if your white blood cell count is low historically, like in the 3s, in the 2s, even in the 4s, like the range, if I remember right, for most labs is up to about 8, it needs to be higher than 2, 3, 4 for sure. Okay, so zinc, favorite form, still can cause some nausea, easier to travel with, especially if you're just doing a carry-on bag and you have to think about liquids, but it takes way more of this. Let's talk about ways to manage zinc. So I wrote an article about this, but it's probably hard to imagine doing this. If I thought I was getting sick, I would either take this zinc and put it under my tongue and hold it for 1 minute, or I would actually get like 3 or 4 droppers full. I keep a little shot glass back there, and put 3 or 4 droppers full in the shot glass so that I don't have to hold my head back and keep dropping the liquid in, and then shoot this back and gargle it. And TMI, right? But if you just, it kind of makes you choke. And so if you choke, you can just spit it back in here. There's going to be some saliva in it, of course, but you really should try to gargle it for about 1 minute. When you take it orally in like a quart of water, so here's what we do in the morning. This has ginger in it, but you'll get the idea. So in the morning, I take a quart of water, I've got lemon juice in it, and I put 2 droppers full of zinc in it, and I drink that. And that's a good enough ratio that it doesn't make me sick. If you're new to this, I wouldn't start there, but that's what I do. And then, so that it goes into the stomach, it has to go to the liver, it is the right form, so it doesn't need to get processed. But when you take this form, it has to actually get manipulated in the liver. So that's why this is so much more powerful. So again, when you're getting sick, you can gargle it. You can do it sublingually. You can even do it sublingually or gargle it. If you can do it for about a minute, you've absorbed most of it, and then you can just spit it out. It seems wasteful. If you're pregnant, that's what you should do. You do not know how the baby is reacting. None of this applies to pregnancy, okay? So, so those are completely different rules, and you'd need a one-on-one. Okay, so let me read the comments. How much zinc can you take in a day? As much as you can get in, girlfriend. Depending on how you feel like your immune system is working, you can do, you know, a dropper full 3 times a day, 2 droppers full in the morning, 2 at night. Anytime you drink water, you can work on your zinc. I keep it by the bed. If I wake up and have kind of a sore throat, even in the middle of the night, and I'm already laying on my back, I can easily take it, get the dropper full, and just like saturate that tonsil area so that, again, it's going straight into the lymphatic system instead of through the gastrointestinal tract to the liver. Can I show you what you mean by the moons? Okay, so I can only show you one because I'm working on mine. Here's my thumb, and that white area right above the cuticle is what you should have on all your fingers. But I was sick 2 years ago. If you don't know that story, I was diagnosed with Lyme. It's a big old mess, but it's a pathogen problem. It includes all the herpetic viruses, and I lost all my moons. So I only have one thumb. I have 2 thumbs to show you. So I hope that helps. Hi, Amanda. Hi, Ellen. Okay, so that was zinc. Let's move on to the next thing I want to talk about is sovereign silver, which is not colloidal silver. This is silver hydrosol. It's a nanoparticle, meaning that it's really small and easily excreted. This is not going to turn you blue. Do I look blue? I've taken this for over 2 years, lots and lots of bottles. It's incredibly powerful. And so you're just going to follow the dosing on the bottle here, a teaspoon, and you can do it once daily for maintenance, 3 times a day if you're working on your immune system, up to 7 times a day in an acute situation. So, and this should be away from food. So as a morning routine, it would be zinc and lemon water. And then this might be like 5 minutes after that or something, or even before that. It just should be away enough that you're going to do it sublingually. You're going to hold it. That means under your tongue. And then you can swallow after, I think it says 30 seconds. I try to hold it, 30 seconds. I try to hold it as long as I can, not trusting my gut function completely at this point. Okay, silver hydrosol comes in a lot of different forms. Sorry, because it's backwards, everything, it takes a while to learn. This is silver hydrosol in a gel. So let's say you got a nice cut. Hang on, we're cooking too. Yep. Okay, so let's say you got a cut, or, you know, something not just like a little paper cut, but something, again, this is antiseptic, so you could put this on and cover it with a Band-Aid. The link to all of this, there's a tab on my website called Save on Supplements that has a link to Emerson, a link to where I get the B12, and a link to the zinc, and we're not talking about B12 tonight. Okay, so silver hydrosol. Now we're into a nasal spray. If you are prone to sinus infections, or I'm pixelating, there's nothing I can do. I'm sorry, I have all my programs turned off and nobody's on the internet. I hope that's not happening to everybody. Kim Hudson, it should always, sovereign silver is always 10 parts per million. So if there's more to the question, let me know. So this is for doing nasally. I would have all of these around. You never know which one you're going to need, right? This is sovereign silver in a spray, like for the back of your throat. You can also, it's safe for eyes. So if you got like pink eye or some sort of eye infection, completely safe. It's too expensive for me, but there are people who wash their contacts in sovereign silver. So, and then here's the little travel size bottle, exact same stuff as this, but just a 2-ounce travel size for your suitcase. Okay, okay, great. Yeah, just listen, sorry, I don't, I'm plugged in. Johnny's outside, so nobody's on the internet. I've turned everything off. Okay, the next step up from Sovereign Silver is Argentine 23. It's also sold at Wellevate. It is more powerful than Sovereign Silver, and of course then more expensive. Same dosing, 1 teaspoon, up to 7 times a day. I keep both around. I use this for a daily sort of thing, and I use this if something's truly coming on. And for the first time, I just bought the Argentine 23 in the 2-ounce bottle because I do want to travel with this one even. Okay, I think let's talk about vitamin C next. So zinc, Sovereign Silver, ester C plus bioflavonoids. It's so weird when it's backwards. Okay, so you can see that pretty good there. Again, you can go to that link. Critical for the immune system. Don't forget that Linus Pauling won 2 Nobel Prizes for his work with vitamin C. Shelf life, sorry, it makes you bounce around. I think it has a long shelf life, but I'm going to say it's a couple of years, but I don't see that handy. I don't see it handy, but okay, so vitamin C critical. So 2 of these is 1 gram. And let me give you an extreme. In an acute situation, you could take 1 gram every hour. When you're sick, your body will use all the vitamin C you get. If you just started out tomorrow and started taking 1 gram every hour, you're going to probably end up with diarrhea. But so again, I'm talking about when you're sick. If you just are looking for immune support, a maintenance dose, I'll tell you what I do, and you can sort of figure it out. I try to take 4 twice a day. That's 2 grams twice a day. It's a little bit over. I could easily take more, but I have like one of those pill things, and that's what fits in there pretty nicely. So vitamin C critical. You can accentuate the ester C with like rose hips tea, and of course fruits and vegetables like oranges, tangerines, nectarines, grapes, any sort of fruit is going to have a lot of vitamin C. And what vitamin C actually can do is that it's attached to the phytonutrients in the food. Let's take grapes, let's take oranges, let's use grapes for a minute. So there's resveratrol in grapes, right? So the fructose, the sugar in a grape, is actually attached to the resveratrol or any other phytonutrient. And the pathogen needs to eat, and he wants the sugar. So he draws up the fructose from the grape, but with it is the phytonutrient resveratrol, and poof, it explodes him. So that is how fruits and vegetables actually can kill the pathogen. Yes, that's from pure encapsulations. Yeah, sorry, everything's backwards, but that's pure encapsulations. Okay, so we've done all the Argentine, all the silver, we've done vitamin C, we've done zinc. Okay, now I think we'll maybe talk about a whole bunch of things, and you're going to notice that they're all from the brand called Nature's Answer. And so here's Nature's Answer Golden Seal. I have a lot of them. There's Eyebright. I have more than you can imagine. I have Propolis. I know they're backwards. Lomatium, Lomatium. Mullein. And they all do different things, of course, right? Cat's Claw, I've taken a keg full of to get over my Lyme disease. Golden Seal. Okay, and then there's one more brand, Botanic Choice Lemon Balm. And all of these are anti-pathogen. So a pathogen is either a bacteria or a virus. I don't quite know how to explain these in just doing a Facebook Live. They all have different uses. They're all best for something. They're all herbs and they all kill things. But for example, for chronic Lyme, I said I took a keg full of cat's claw. Would I have gotten better if I took a keg full of propolis? Maybe, right? But they all have things that they're good at killing, and that's my job, is to know what they're all for. So, but what I do want to educate you about is that these are all alcohol-free. So the alcohol denatures and fragments the herbs. So again, these are all alcohol-free. It always says that in the bottom corner, in the little green, must be on this side, right there, gluten-free. alcohol-free. So make sure that if you buy any herbal tinctures that they're in an alcohol-free base. That means they're in a glycerin base, and that's fine. Okay, let's talk about curcumin, and which also is just the turmeric root. This is Progressive Labs. Incredibly anti-inflammatory, but part of why it's anti-inflammatory is because it's actually killing pathogens, and pathogens create all that muscular pain that we call fibromyalgia. They create the stiffness, the achiness, some of the like joint pain. So curcumin, and you could do like 1 twice a day up to like probably 2 or 3 twice a day. I tend to not use it aggressively, and we use a lot of turmeric root naturally. So I will buy a turmeric root and a ginger root, juice them both together, and make ice cubes, and then put them in a container and freeze them. And I'll drop that into a soup, into a stir fry, into my fresh orange juice, you know, whatever I happen to be doing. So I like to do it as much as I can with food. Let's talk about lysine. This is also pure encapsulations. Lysine is an incredible supplement for the herpetic viruses, so Epstein-Barr, shingles, CMV, cytomegalovirus, HSV1, HSV2. There's probably 100 herpetic viruses because they keep mutating, and so lysine was definitely part of my arsenal for chronic Lyme. Okay, other things that I don't take a lot, but I like to keep this around. You know, it's what I do, and I have my own little pharmacy. So these are Gaia herbs, oregano, and olive leaf. You could travel with these. I would take these in an acute situation, like a flu coming on. If you were eating out and you were afraid of food poisoning, either because you've had it or you know, you just don't trust where you're at, or maybe you're going to a foreign country, you could definitely be doing oil of oregano, just 1 capsule with each meal, to stave off any bacteria that came in with the food. Oh, and those also, the exact same ones, olive leaf and oil of oregano, both come in an alcohol-free tincture. So again, just repeats. You know, sometimes it's easier for me to take a tincture and just put a whole bunch of these in water and just chug it down. It's not great, but you know, you got to do what you got to do, right? It's better that than to get sick. And so, and other times I'd rather take a capsule. Obviously they have pros and cons, so we just keep them both. Okay, so I think I've covered all that. So now I want to talk about some other, no, let's do these next. Okay, Gaia herbs again. I just finished this one, black elderberry syrup. I just finished the bottle, so that's why this is in a box. We always keep a box or 2 of this around. You could take this every single day. Again, anti-pathogen. You could take a teaspoon, a tablespoon. You just need to be able to afford it, but very great for the immune system. And then bronchial wellness is a collection of things if the flu hits your lungs, or if you had something like COPD or asthma. Yeah, those would be great. Okay, so let's talk about a salt inhaler, because you maybe don't know this. So inside, in the bottom of this, it looks like a salt shaker. It's got the little plastic plug. Inside of here is Himalayan salt, and you open this up, and there's all the salt. And I've got a little bottle of like an immune blend, essential oil, and you're just going to drop, I think it says 10. I haven't used this for a while. It does last for a very long time, and we're getting ready to travel, so I don't mind putting 10 in here because it'll last for a couple of weeks, that 10 drops of oil. And now you breathe that essential oil in through the Himalayan salt. You're going to hold it for a minute and then exhale. You can also do this nasally, and then I'll answer some questions, but you can go like this. And then, of course, you can switch sides. So these, because they don't need electricity, are great for planes or, you know, anywhere where you're not going to be able to plug in. I bought this through livinglibations.com. but you can get these. They sell them at the local naturopathic clinic here. I think if you just put in salt inhaler, you'll find it. But livinglibations.com is where I got my salt inhaler. I have my own. Johnny has his own because you don't want to be swapping out all that bacteria. And I also bought, it's called Immune Illume, and I bought this from Living Libations. They have really super high quality, clean essential oils. I know everybody says they are, but if you watch some of her videos and do a little research, you'll figure out that she is one of the top essential oil producers. I don't know how you know when to replace the salt, but they did send extra salt. I think what you need, though, is just more of the essential oil if you go through it. Thank you. Vitamin D. You know what? Just like 2,000 IU once a day, not a lot. And just try to get sunshine. Not a fan of sunscreen at all. Nightshades. Let's talk about that in a different one. That's like a whole can of worms for me. Thyme, oregano, rosemary are also incredibly antipathogen. I'm not a big one on swallowing any essential oils, even the Living Libations, but I'm happy to take something like thyme or rosemary, mix it with a carrier oil like coconut oil, put it all over my neck, my lymph nodes up here, on my wrists, at the bottom of my feet. So the other essential oil I use a lot of is frankincense. I have 3 different brands. I take the cleanest one, mix it with coconut oil, put it all over my armpit pits and all over the girls, because frankincense, the one from Oman, O-M-A-N, Middle Eastern region, they have almost no cancer. It's said to be the most anti-cancer of the frankincense because there's different varieties. So frankincense topically also, but I've certainly done a lot of thyme oil when I was really sick, and I would again mix it with coconut oil, put it all over the bottom of my feet, put it all over my neck, and then I would go sit in the far infrared sauna and then stink up the whole house. Johnny doesn't much care for thyme, but you got to do what you got to do, right? Okay, I think the last thing on my list here to talk about is Zots, Z-O-T-S, licorice, and they're just little tiny pieces of pure licorice, organic licorice root extract. It comes from Italy, if I remember right, no added sweeteners. And you can either put it between your teeth and gums over here, or you can do it sublingually. I put about 3 of these under my tongue at night and sleep with them. And I've figured out, you know, like just like sleeping with a baby, you change, you just become slightly aware of it, right? So I figured out how to not drool and make a mess all over everything. And if I wake up and roll over and they're gone and dissolved, I'll put another couple in. They do turn your teeth brown, it'll wash off, but you'll wake up looking like you've been chewing or smoking. It could raise the blood pressure if you took straight licorice, you know, 24 hours a day. Licorice is often something that should be pulsed, meaning like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. If you had a tendency toward high blood pressure, I don't. One of my most comical blood pressures was 94/49. I can remember because it was the same 2 numbers. I am historically low. Can't wait to really figure out what that is. Now and then it'll come up over 100, but for the most part, it's hideously low. It's probably adrenal function. Licorice is not only antiviral, but great for adrenals. I mean, it's good for a lot of things, right? All of these are multi-purpose. Here's the way I see it. God created all these herbs. He created elderberries and mullein leaf that grows out in our yard, and herbs like eyebright and lomatium and wild cherry. And so using God's food, these herbs are smart and they know which pathogens to attack and which ones don't. Okay, so let's talk about kids. One of the best things you could do for any child, niece, nephew, grandchild, your own kids, is you could start supporting their immune system now. So my advice about that now, and this is in general, I should throw my disclaimer in, you know, it wouldn't hurt to do a consult, but because it's always by body weight, but you're going to be able to give a couple drops to an infant. By the time they're 4 years old, you maybe can do a half a dropper full. I mean, again, this really should be by weight, but we're classically zinc deficient. And so, of course, you don't want to make a little baby sick or something, but so you could do anywhere from a drop to a dropper full, depending on where your kids are at in that spectrum. Again, you really can't overdo zinc except to make somebody nauseous, but you're not going to give your kids too much zinc and create a copper deficiency. I don't know if you know this, but pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, all of those are heavy, heavy, heavy in copper. They're a bad copper, but they're a copper and they take up a parking spot. Conventional food is full of it. The soil is full of copper just naturally. We have copper pipes, we had copper pans, we can inherit copper. Copper comes from everywhere, but we're not getting the zinc that we need. So, zinc for little babies. I would also do the elderberry syrup. And I'll tell you what my niece and some other people have done is that they'll get the zinc ready, get the elderberry syrup ready, and get some raw honey ready. And what my niece has her little kids do is put their head back like a bird. She drops, they're 2 and 3, and I think she uses about half of a dropper full, and she'll drop it down the back of their throat. And then she has a teaspoon of elderberry syrup ready and a teaspoon of the raw honey ready. Again, no raw honey for little babies under 2, right? But they're 3 and almost 4. And they'll make kind of a face because the zinc doesn't taste great, and you can taste it when you put it down the back of your throat. It's kind of metallic-y, I guess. It'll last for like 5 minutes, but it doesn't last forever. And then they're done, and they do it once a day, twice a day. So now the other stuff for kids, I think what's most important is keep the diet clean. Nobody is serviced anymore by eating gluten. Dairy wasn't meant for humans. Eggs feed every pathogen known to man. It's because we've taught them that. They're raised in the labs on an egg medium. Egg is in vaccines. Eggs feeds every single pathogen possible. So there are egg substitutes. You can do flax egg, chia egg, aquafaba egg, but I would definitely keep families off of eggs, gluten, dairy. Corn is pretty much all contaminated with genetically modified corn these days. It is a grain. It does still feed pathogens. Gluten, dairy, eggs, corn, soy is genetically modified. You also, just for anybody interested in their health, you want to keep the fat low. I know we live in this big fat craze, but fat takes oxygen out of the blood. So I want you to think about chicken soup, where you roast a chicken and at the bottom is all that liquid, but it's all that fat too. The fat takes the oxygen out of the blood. Fat stimulates the release of adrenaline, which is what makes us feel good and makes fat really addicting. But we are getting way too much fat and it's taking a toll on our livers. Pathogens can live like under the fat, inside the fat. I mean, so a really plant-based, low-fat diet is super helpful if you're working on your immune system. One of the things that crossed my mind when I got diagnosed with chronic Lyme and I didn't know what to do was, what would I do if I had cancer? And I don't know if you've ever studied it, but people switch to a completely vegan diet, typically, if they're going to try to deal with cancer naturally. And they do high doses of vitamin C. And so anyway, plant-based, fruits, vegetables, and leafy greens, just like I explained about the grapes and how the resveratrol and the fructose are bound together. And the pathogen says, hey, sugar, we like sugar, right? But he brings that up. And the resveratrol, or whatever phytonutrient happens to attach to be the fructose, actually can kill the pathogen. Very different from chocolate cake and white sugar and all of that. So, okay, so let's look for more questions and see if there's more I can do for kids for immune health. Yeah, I think I've said it all. I'm going to take some of my tea. So I think I'll answer the question, how do you know when to replace the salt, with using your intuition. One of my colleagues and mentors has really taught me how to use my intuition. And so I use it a lot. And if I just felt like, gosh, I've had this for a couple of years and it's just been sitting around, or I've used it a lot, like in either case, I might replace the salt. Super cheap to replace the salt. So Kim wants to know, what do you mean that the Argentine 23 is more potent than the hydrosol? Oh, maybe this was your question earlier. So 10 parts per million, 23 parts per million, ultrafine suspension. You know what? I don't think I can tell you, except that this is the professional formula. And so I just know it's stronger. I'm sorry, I don't have a very scientific answer for that. Okay, what else? Who's still here? Tell me at least hi if you're here. Oops. Doesn't scroll very good. Come on. Okay, I'm at the bottom. Okay, so anything else? We're at a half hour. I'm happy to go finish our own dinner if there's nothing else. Thanks everybody for being here. So make sure to share this on your page, help other people with immune system. Make sure to tag people that you know might have compromised immune system. Will the silver interfere with your thyroid? No, but you should still take them apart. I mean, here's what it'll do. So what I now believe for thyroid trouble is that whether you're hypo, hyper, Hashimoto's, Graves, thyroid cancer, whatever name you want to put on it, I now believe that that's some sort of herpetic virus living in the thyroid. There's a lot of research in PubMed. There's a book by Anthony William you can go look up. There's plenty of information about what's going on with the thyroid. So what Argentine will do, ultimately, this is why I believe I got off my thyroid medicine, is when I went attacking all the pathogens involved in what we call chronic Lyme disease. I killed all the pathogens that were living in my thyroid. So I've been off my thyroid medication for a year and 5 months, I think. And my labs are great. I don't have a lot of faith in labs at this point, but my labs are great. My doctor's happy. There are still things I'm working on. My liver is a big one. I went fully raw vegan 3.5 weeks ago, and I'm going to do it until everything in my health is completely tuned up and exactly where I want it to be. So it's a long-term commitment. I've done it before, but I've always done it for like thinking, oh, I'll do it for 2 weeks. I'll do it for 4 weeks. I've done days of fully juicing. And this time it's just going to be fully raw vegan. So meaning fruits, vegetables, leafy greens. It doesn't mean raw broccoli. It just means lots of smoothies, salads, juices, cauli rice with raw sauces. So Joan wants to know about coconut milk. And do you mean the stuff in the can, or do you mean coconut milk as a creamer? Let me know. All fat is fat. I used to not believe this. I was working at a clinic, and they got one of the research grants for DPP, Diabetes Prevention Program, back in the early 2000s, I think it was. And they put people with pre-diabetes on a low-fat diet. And I used to have conversations / arguments with the woman who was running the program saying, but plant fat is better. But it turns out, if you go look at all the information out there, that fat is fat when it comes to the liver. And so if you're talking about coconut milk in the can, and if you're talking about somebody having a chronic illness, it would best to be avoid that during the healing. None of this necessarily means forever. And it's part of what I, when I'm working with people, there's things we do while you're healing, and then there's regular life. But everybody should be off gluten, dairy, corn, eggs, soy, stuff like that. Of all the things I presented, my top 3, so I would say zinc, vitamin C for sure, and I would just do like Sovereign Silver as supplements, I think. I mean, If you just were buying 3, that's what I would pick. If you're my patient, I would probably have to decide between, I would probably always going to pick zinc and C, and then it would be a battle between sovereign silver, which is going to kill a lot of pathogens, but broadly, and then something like mullein, which is better for pathogens that happen to live in the lungs, or, you know what I mean? Like mullein and lomatium are great for lungs. Cat's claw is great for herpetic viruses. And so when I see somebody's history, I can tell what people are, what pathogens are involved, and what might be best for them. All of these are great. Like, you couldn't really go wrong with doing olive leaf or the oregano, the oil of oregano. Incredible. I have had amazing results in my career with oil of oregano. Asthma and COPD, I would put them on a clean diet for one. I'd put them on a lot of vitamin C. I'd put them on bronchial wellness. And the 2 herbs that I talked about were lomatium, Lomatium, and mullein, Mullein. And there's more. My dad was just diagnosed with COPD, and I've been doing a lot of research about what's involved in and how to help that. There are other things, CoQ10 and acetylcysteine antioxidants that can also be super helpful. There was a list. I sent my mom a couple of pages of stuff. Plant Strong. Yeah, Teresa. So, you know, depending on where you're at, what you're hearing, Plant Strong, even naturopaths aren't encouraging me. So I've just studied this for a couple of years. I joined a Facebook group called Raw Vegan Fruitarian. It's been incredibly helpful. There's 12,000 members in there. And I don't even say much in there. I just sit in there and stalk and listen to conversations about protein and fat. And even as a nutritionist who went to a natural medicine school 18 years ago, I have had to relearn a lot of things about how much protein we need. What we do need in life are fruits and vegetables and leafy greens. I know I come from this from a biblical perspective, but God said, go to the garden and eat anything from the trees, right? And if you read the Bible, he talks about fruit. You know, he didn't just immediately say, go to the butcher and eat a bunch of meat and worry about your protein. I'm now convinced that all that extra protein is what is the reason that people have gallstones, kidney stones, bone loss. But you can't hardly tell anybody that, right? So you just have to find that place in your soul where, again, where you listen to like your own intuition. I've struggled with this. I've prayed about it. I've researched it. I've asked for signs. I was at one point in my healing when I met with a medical intuitive, and she said, you're going to be okay being off your thyroid labs, but I had gained weight, and I said, I want to go back on my thyroid labs. And she said, it's not your thyroid, it's your liver. It's predominantly your liver. Your thyroid is still healing from the damage of the pathogens. It's your adrenals that have taken a hit with all of the sickness. And so I fleeced about it. I literally got on my knees and prayed and said, okay, God, I need some help. I need some signs. I need signs of angels and faith. And for almost 30 days, well, for 30 days, almost every day, I got a sign about either faith or trust. And it would show up in my news feed. The very first one I got, Johnny called me into his office and he said, hey, I saved something for you, because he gets up before I do. And he said, I just want you to read this. And it was out of the Sarah Young Jesus Calling book. And it was a whole thing about having faith. And so I got those every day. And so I've had to use a lot of things to get to the place where I am today about trusting that, you know, I mean, I just asked for another script to go do a DEXA scan, because I'm sure that my bones will be more dense this time around, not less dense. It's been, I think it was 2011, 7 years ago, I had a DEXA scan. But I've been off my thyroid meds over a year, and my eyes are better. And I have a post in my computer here of all of the things that have improved being on a plant-based diet, from the joint pain, the muscle pain. I used to wake up and my Achilles heels would hurt so bad that it felt like they had shortened overnight, and it would take them a while to stretch out. Like, it's a list this long of things that have improved being on a plant-based diet, avoiding the foods I talked about, and, you know, working through a plethora of these kinds of things. So coconut milk in a carton, if you mean So Delicious coconut milk, that's pretty low fat. It still has some fat. It would be fine if you're using that as a coffee creamer. But that's one kind of coconut milk in a carton. There are other kinds, obviously. There's Aroy D that really is the thick coconut milk. So I think the whole idea would be to get yourself an app and log all of it and see where you're at for fat. And I don't think I had to pay for it. Maybe it was a couple dollars. I ended up downloading the Chronometer app, and I put all my food in there. And even eating plant-based with no overt fats, meaning no nuts and seeds, no avocado, my fat ended up being 14% for the day. So, and I aim for about 10%. Okay, so it's 45 minutes. I think we're going to call it a night. I want to thank everybody for being here. And again, don't forget to share and tag, and we'll see you for next month's Facebook Live. So thanks everybody for coming.